She is a Colombian native who moved to New York City at the age of 1 and grew up to be a successful actress on stage, television, and movies, working since she was a teenager with her first feature film at the age of 18 in Lean on Me with Morgan Freeman and a Broadway debut by the age of 24.
Now, she also recently played Carla Cordova in Orange is the New Black and was just in an audio theater production of Romeo and Juliet with Lupita Nyong'o. She's also starred in classics we all know and love, and we are very, very thrilled and excited to talk to Miss Karina Arroyave. Thank you for being here today, ma'am.
Thank you, guys. I'm excited.
She just can't hide it. I know.
It's true.
No, you're excited. I saw you for the first time when I was when we were 4
I was we were
6
4,
years old. 6 years
somewhere
old.
around the 80s.
Yeah. So,
Really?
this is
What was it in? Do you remember?
Lean on Me.
Yes.
Watched it many
okay,
times.
okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and then grew up and recognized you and everything, all the other,
Right.
187.
Right.
And
Those were the days, right? Those were the days.
They were the days.
so speaking of Lean on Me, this was your first starring role in a feature film, but you've been training since you were a young child with your mom enrolling you in classes when you expressed an interest. What sparked that interest?
I don't know if I could put a name to it. I just know that as a very young child, I watched a lot of TV, like a lot. Okay. And I would, you remember Cable Guy when it was like, the TV's a big, no, yeah. So I just remember I would run to the bathroom and to the bathroom mirror, and I would mimic what I just saw. Like if I just saw a commercial, I would go and I would, do the commercial in front of the mirror. So I didn't know that was acting back then, and I was around 4 or 5 years old. But so that just sort of kind of intrinsically kind of started to just kind of happen in me.
Yeah.
I can see it. I mean, especially like when she says growing up watching TV all day, every day. I mean, I didn't play sports. It literally was 24/7. And I wasn't an only child, but I just know I always had the TV, and thus this was born from always being in front of the TV. Now, let me ask you this. Now, clearly, a lot of people, and as he mentioned, we know you from playing Maria in Lean on Me. You were a student of Eastside High who initially is a thorn in Principal Joe Clark's side, but eventually taking his side as your character's relationship evolves throughout the film. What was your experience like working with the iconic actors such as Morgan Freeman?
Well, yeah, I haven't seen that movie in so long, and I don't remember that Maria was a thorn in his side, but I guess she was, because she was kind of annoying, right? Was she annoying in the beginning? Okay.
She was the only only student that really stood up. She was the only student that really stood up to him.
Right. And then she was like, Mr. Clark, what about the black kids? The black kids going to get everything. What about this? I'm like, yes, fight for your rights. Yes.
When everyone always like repeats that monologue back to me. When they see me, they're like, yeah. Wow. Okay. So first of all, Morgan Freeman. He was not like Morgan Freeman back then. So believe it or not, we were all like excited because we're like, oh, we're going to work with the guy from Electric Company. So so we all knew him from that. And I think like the first day he showed up, and I think he had these purple stonewashed jeans on, and it was so cool and kind of hippie-ish, and we were all just sort of like taken by him, and he was so kind. He was like the father we all wanted, it was strange to see him like transform into Joe Clark, because he was such a just laid back kind of almost like a hippie-ish vibe kind of dude. Yeah. And then we'd see him in the suit. And it was like a completely different person. He would sit with us and talk with us. And I remember once I had a dream about him, and he came over and he sat with us. And this was in I think it was the scene in the cafeteria. Well, one of them. And I remember telling him, I had a dream about you. And he's like, oh, what was your dream? And I was telling him about my dream, and just great memories, just really, really beautiful vibe to him.
That's really cool.
Yes.
And you were working at a real estate office when you landed that role. What can you talk about what that transition was like? What going from day job to now you're an actress?
Yeah, the gentleman who owned the real estate company, I'm actually still in touch with him, and we're like good friends now. He was, God bless him. His name is Joel Aragona. God bless him. He always just let me go out on auditions, and I had several auditions for Lean on Me. I had to keep going back, and he let me go to all of them. So it just, once I did the film, I just realized I can't be working full time if I'm going to be auditioning and everything. And it was tough to leave there because they treated me so well, and it was really a fun job. I was sort of like the bilingual liaison between the tenants and the office. So then, but it wasn't like, oh, I left that job and then I didn't work a regular sort of job again. I actually I worked part-time as a telemarketer. But what was really fun, I had a really great fun job doing customer service for a satellite company that ran all these like pay-per-view specials. And I love that job. Like it was such a like sort of like Cheers, like where everybody knows your name. It was that kind of thing. Nice. And anyway, so I would do that like a couple of hours a day, and then audition during the day. And so it wasn't until I got a part on a soap where it was like, all right, all the other jobs, Stop. Yeah, exactly.
The character Maria, how would you say that you identify with the character? Would you say you guys are, how were you the same? And let me ask you this, how adversely were you different?
Well, I would like to think that there's a part of me that is outspoken, depending on the subject, depending on the people around me, mainly the subject, like how passionate I feel about it. But so in that way, we're different. I would say her passion were also very similar. And the way that we're different, I would say that I think she's a little more outspoken than I am. I'm a little subtler. So yeah, and so in that sense, I admire her, and I wish that in real life I could be more like that.
Right.
Because she doesn't take anything from anyone
at any time or any place.
Exactly.
And
that, I don't know if this is the right time to kind of interject this, but her most outspoken moment, which is maybe at the end, when she's like, when you talk about the law and you're just that was actually John's idea, John Avildsen. That was not in the script. And that day when we were filming, there were so many people around. Oh my God, it was like tons of people. And I believe the writer was there, and John was just like, Maria would say something. She would say something now. Let's, and I think he might have come up with what she said. And he was just like, well, what if you just say something like that? And then I was like, oh, I got to remember it. And then we did it. So that was last minute. Yeah.
Wow, that's crazy. That's one of the most powerful parts of the movie. And to know that you got that down
right
moments before. Yeah, that's
awesome. It's like they were staging a coup.
Yeah.
but the right way.
And this wouldn't be the first time that you played a troubled student with the redemption arc after a new principal or teacher comes in and takes a special interest. You went on to play Josie in Dangerous Minds with Michelle Pfeiffer and Rita in 187 with Samuel L. Jackson. So what is your approach when you're playing characters that go through this transformative experience where you have to gain the empathy of the audience at the beginning of the movie before that transition even happens?
I think that you gain empathy from just being human, so if you just play the truth of the character, as troubled as they may be, if you just really dive into that truth and their humanity peeks through, then I think that grabs them. That grabs the empathy from the audience, hopefully.
Yeah, I remember watching Lean on Me the first time. Even though your character was like staged as a like a problematic student, you could tell right from your first scene that there was going to be an evolution there in some way or another. Like something in your eyes. Yeah, like Spitfire was coming out
Oh
of your
yeah,
mouth,
definitely.
but
Like yes.
there was you could see it in your
Head
eyes.
of the
There was
student
more.
union. She was not gonna listen. You were fighting for the people's rights before they were. That was very good. Let me ask you something because you mentioned this before, and I think it's a really good segue. You mentioned like one day you were on set and it was just so many people, and I know you mentioned the writers and the producers, but from the research me and him did, we read that real life students and teachers from the school appeared as extras in the film. So I wanted to ask you, what was it like to have you, what was it like, what was that experience was like, and have you ever had any other experiences like that to where you worked with so many real life people on set?
Well, I think that might be the only one. I think so. I don't know. I can't like think of anything else, honestly, that same situation. And as far as the real people in Lean on Me, the main one that I remember is Joe Clark. He was there a lot, and he was very gracious to us, and yeah, it was just a good vibe. Yeah, so I think he would be the only one that I really remember in that way, honestly.
It doesn't surprise me that that hasn't happened a lot in your or at all besides that in your career because I have to imagine. I mean, people think to be an extra, anybody could do that, but even that takes a certain amount of skill and understanding
And
about
patience.
being, knowing your places,
Mhm.
continuity. So to take the students and teachers from the school and use them as extras, that had to present challenges.
I just thought of something. I just thought of something. I think we did that in Dangerous Minds and 187. Oh, just scratch what I just said. Yeah, no. It was the actual students from those schools. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I just remember that. Yeah, as in terms of the teachers, I don't know if it was the teachers, but the students were like the actual, I mean, the people, the background was, I think, actual students from those schools.
How
Nice.
you
Yeah.
think that casting call went? Anybody want to be in a movie? Come out on a Saturday, guys. We got a role for you. We got donuts and water. No money.
Yeah.
Donuts.
Um, and John G. Alvinson, the director, rest in peace. He also directed two other classics, Rocky and The Karate Kid. Can you talk about what it was like working with him and how you guys came to later work together on the stage production of The Love Junkies of Hell's Kitchen, which you actually wrote and directed?
Yeah, John, John means a lot to me. Um, so I never spoken about this publicly, but I I was involved romantically with his son for 11 years. So uh, so I knew him well, personally after the movie, right? Because I met his son was a PA on the film set, and so that's where we met. And so John stayed in my life, for all that time. And so, we lost touch. But then I remember when I think he would call me periodically when he would see me in something. I remember when Crash came out, he called me and he told me he saw it and that he loved it. And yeah. Anyway, so then flash forward several years later, uh, I'm doing the Love Junkies of Hell's Kitchen, and I'm putting together the fundraising and just everything. And I sent the information to his ex-wife, which I was also very close with. And I guess she forwarded that email to John. And I got an email one day, and John was saying, I heard about your script. He's like, I want to be involved. I want to help. And I was just like, yeah, it was really such a gift. And in terms of, go ahead.
No, I'm just saying, yeah, that had to be amazing. I mean, well, I mean, I know he's like a personal friend, but he's also the director of Rocky and the
Karate
Karate Kid
Kid,
and Lean on Me.
yes.
To have somebody like that express interest in something that you've written, it must have been very validating.
It really was. And um, in terms of working with him as a director, I don't remember one negative moment. He is really an actor's director,
Mhm.
where he works with you, he talks with you. His tone is gentle, understanding, he listens, and it was wonderful.
That is
Yeah.
amazing. We've talked to a lot of other actors and actresses such as yourself, and they all, for the most part, they have something in common. They say that when they have been on film sets, they try to soak up knowledge. Not if, just because you're acting doesn't mean you don't look at the PA, you don't look at the director, you try to learn. So let me ask you this: Lean on Me. From what we researched, this was your first time being on the set of a feature film. Is there anything in particular that you learned during the production that's stayed with you ever since?
Well, when that scene that we were talking about where she's standing up, for everyone's rights and everything.
Mhm.
Well, I didn't know. No one told me how many times we were going to do it. I think we did it at least 25 times. And I was like, and no one prepared me for that. No one said, you know what, we're going to, and I just kept thinking, what am I doing wrong? Why do I have to keep doing it over? So, I mean, I definitely learned that on that film, that you just, sometimes you just got to keep doing it and doing it.
Everybody back to one.
Yeah. Oh my God. I was just like, what is this? This is torture. What kind of hell did I sign up for?
No, I'm being pranked. I mean, what is that? What is that like as a performer that you're bringing this scene to life? Like as you're going through like the 20th take, is there ever a point where you go from like I don't even know what these words mean anymore because I've said them so many times, and then it circles all the way back around to like you are embodying the words? Is there ever like something like that that happens?
I think what the way that I deal with it now is, I think the way that I dealt with it then, which was, don't think about it, just do it. Just go again. Just, because you don't want to spend too much time going, oh my God, we have to do it again. All that energy of, oh my God, we have to do it again. Just put it right back into the next take.
Yeah.
So
Right.
you're almost like, okay, fine, whatever you're feeling, just put it in the next thing. Put it in it's almost like you know, like this kind of thing versus,
Right. Yeah.
just smooth. Just go right into it. Don't think about it. Just do it.
Yeah.
Because everybody else is doing it 25 times with you. So they're probably just as first. They don't have any lines. They just keep walking by. Do it again. All right.
And it's not that I minded doing it, but no one. Well, I mean, I guess part of me did mind, because I felt like, what am I doing wrong? But it's not that it was torturous in and of itself. It's just no one prepared me for it.
Yeah.
But in
Yeah.
terms of the set, what I remember, which I've sort of realized, is that was pure excitement of being on that set, because it was like we were all so young, and there was just this excitement, and it was like, I think probably all of our first movie. There may have been one or two people that had, done a film before, but we were all pretty much, beginners. And what I realized is that as time went on, that excitement became replaced by terror. It's almost like the less you know, the better off you are. You're just like,
Yeah.
sort of oblivious to, you know, um, what's at stake, and you're just like, la la la, I'm just a kid in my
Mhm.
first movie. And then as your career starts building, and things start taking on more weight, it goes from for me, that's what happened. It went from excitement to, oh gosh, I hope I don't mess up. Yeah.
Yeah.
There was a review that I read researching this that the reviewer specifically said, and I, it's very true. When you watch the movie, he says you could feel the excitement in the director and in the cast because that it comes out in the finished product that there was this joy to be doing this.
Really? For Lena and Me?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah.
But that speaks to what you said, Karina. You basically said that he was a director's actor, or actor's director, if you will. Because again, I feel like I've been on sets to where I've seen directors belittle and demean people, but I've also been on sets to where me and him have ran, and we run a respectable set. So it's all about making that actor and actress feel comfortable. So before we leave the film, I did want to ask you this is because you actually gave us one scene earlier. You told us your last scene was given, those words were given to you at the last moment. But let me ask you this: is there this is a cult classic, so for any of the fans of the film out there, is there anything else that you would like the fans of the film to know or to share that they may not know?
Well, I guess that maybe that part of the movie was filmed in LA. We did some, yeah, we did some pickups in Los Angeles, and that was so fun just to get flown to be out there and to just be like, oh, we're, because we went from shooting at the actual school, which was like, all right, we're just in a high school, to then being on a lot, on a studio lot, doing pickups. And that was, remember the scene where it's just a little cutaway where Maria's reading, and then the burgers are burning.
Right.
And, yeah, that was in LA.
Wow,
That's crazy. IMDb doesn't even know that. They only have the filming locations listed as New Jersey.
but now we have it.
Yeah, well, they'll have to update that. All right, from 1989 to 1993, you were Bianca on the soap opera As the World Turns. What is the production of a soap opera like compared to film?
Well, it's a lot more, they just throw a lot at you every day. It's just like, here's this script for today, and here's this script. So it moves really, really fast. I would say that film versus TV is much slower. You could do, 2 scenes, and that'll be all that's on the schedule for TV. I'm sorry, for film. And then for TV, you've got 5 scenes on the schedule. So the pace is night and day. The soap is just, and 5, 4, 3, 2, and then you go, and then hopefully we don't make it. And then, all right, we got it. Let's move on. It's not like, it's like, yeah. So in terms of the pacing, and also I guess in terms of diving into the material, for the soap, we rehearsed in the morning when we got there. And the rehearsal was like, all right, just do it a few times, and then you're there and there and there, and okay. And then, whereas for film, you could spend, full days on rehearsal. So it's not as in depth.
I noticed you were friends with Lisa Gorlitsky. Is that you guys?
Oh, Lisa, yeah.
Yes.
We talked to her, and she brought up that it's almost like a regular job because you have these set hours every day, and it was kind of great, like having normal business hours where you can still have time to make a family or spend time with your family, but when you were there, it was go go go, like, and a lot of the times it's one take. Like, we got it. It's good enough. We're moving on.
Yeah.
That's
Wow.
incredible.
Wow. See, and she finally was like, wait a minute, Lean on Me took 25 times. The soaps get me. It took me one time. They really, truly get me. Let me ask you this now, to kind of segue from what he was saying. You were on the show for 4 years. Now, do you look at something like that as maybe job security? Or do you find yourself eventually craving something more, a variety of new challenges, because you may possibly get bored doing the same thing each and every day?
Well, I don't think I ever got bored on the soap because my characters took such a journey. Like, she comes to this country and she's like a servant, and then she gets adopted by this, wealthy woman. So now she's like an heiress, and it was, and then she runs away, and she's in a castle.
The soap operas go off the walls.
It's been a while, but I know.
Yeah, I was never bored doing that.
I could imagine, sure. So you have an extensive resume on the stage. In 1992, you played the title role in Jose Rivera's play Marisol. You made your Broadway debut in 1993, playing Frederica in The Summer House. A reviewer said of your portrayal of Odessa in Water by the Spoonful that you had the most complete and touching performance in the production, also saying hers is a splendid work amid a cluster of excellent performances. As mentioned previously, you wrote and directed.
That's
Yes,
Well, you're right. They didn't, yeah.
you wrote and directed the play Love Junkies of Hell's Kitchen, and you have an audio theater production coming up, Romeo and Juliet. Is there a particular performance from the stage that stands out to you as like your proudest moment?
Yeah, and to be fair, in terms of those reviews, I think that my character had the most sort of heartbreaking kind of journey throughout the play, and I think that that probably affected those reviews. You know,
No, you're not giving yourself enough credit.
that's nice.
Anybody, I mean, if the wrong person did that the wrong way, it wouldn't have been as heartbreaking.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Well, it would be Water by the Spoonful. I would say to date, it's the hardest thing I've ever done. I mean, that was, you know, the character, I don't know how many people watching this know, you know, that character of a haiku mom / Odessa. But it's such a heartbreaking story. I mean, you know, spoilers for Water by the Spoonful. Water by the Spoonful for spoilers. You know, it turns out okay in the end, but it's just, I don't know. I was just like, I don't know how I'm going to do this. You know, it's just such a journey. Do you want me to tell you one thing that happens that could like lets you know like how heartbreaking it was?
Yes.
Well, she has a moment where she, you know, she's with her, you know, adult son, and he brings up how she went to get high one day and she came back and her little 2-year-old baby had died because she went to get high. I mean, and that's the whole thing with the Water by the Spoonful. That's where that title comes from. Yeah. And to live that, you know, twice a day, sometimes like, you know, 8 or 9 times a week. But I was just like, you know what? I really want to do this justice. And so that would be, I guess, my proudest moment, just that play, I guess.
And listen, yeah. I love staging, and you stating that brings me to my next question, because I heard you mention earlier. You mentioned that for you, it's the pacing on the set of being on a film. I'm sorry, being in a TV show. But when you're actually a soap opera, if you will, but when you're actually doing film, you mentioned how, hey, we can go do the same thing a bunch of times. So let me ask you this: if you could only act in one medium for the rest of your career, would you choose stage or would you choose film?
Wow, that is such a great question. I hope that I don't know if my answer is going to be satisfactory though, just because okay, let me just answer the question and then I'll go into the details. I would say at this point, I would choose film because I'm more about like, what can I leave behind? You know what I mean?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And so that is really one of the advantages to film. It's there forever. And then, so for that reason, I'll say film. But with film is actually in a way harder for me because, you know, I don't know if you've noticed that I'm an animated person. Okay. So I have to like really dial it down, you know, I almost have to, and then if you add on top of that, certain types of characters, which is characters I never book, you know, like you'll never see me be like a cop, or I did play a cop once, but it's because I blew my head off and I did that well, so I got it. So, but you know, something like law enforcement where someone has to be so chill and just like, that's brutal for me. It's tough. So in a way, I feel freer on stage because I don't have to worry about being smaller for the camera. I can just, you know, and to be fair, there's no feeling like getting off stage and feeling like, oh my God, I just lived this other life. I just spent the hour and a half or whatever in this other world, this other life. And that can happen with film, but it it's so out of order, the filming. And so each have its advantages, but I would say going forward now, I guess it would be film.
Leaving that legacy behind is always important.
Yeah, that's so true about living another life on stage, because it really, you can't really get that experience in film, like maybe moments, but a lot of the times you're talking to somebody that's not even there, or with stage, everybody is in the scene from beginning to end of the story,
feeding off that energy from one another, and the crowd too. That's the biggest part for me, is like that crowd reacts like, oh no, they love me, they really love me.
You just made me want to audition for some stage productions, because that sounds really.
I'm gonna get you out there, man. I'm gonna get you out there.
It's a great feeling. It's a great experience. Yeah.
And having that direct response from the audience too, I could imagine, is very gratifying.
Although, depending on the night, because sometimes you're like, oh, this gets a laugh or whatever, and it's like silent. You're like, oh, darn it. I wish I was. Yeah.
With Love Junkies of Hell's Kitchen, the lead role of Chula, that was actually partly inspired by your mom, right?
Yes. I did some stand-up in LA, open mics only, right? And I went there and I started telling jokes that had to do with, like, my relationship with my mom, and it just fell flat, right? But what I realized was that when I did the act again, and I would imitate her and then play myself. So when I did it as a dialogue, it worked much better. So I started developing this character that was, somewhat of an imitation from her, of her. My mom was a bartender when I was little. That was one of the things she did. And so then I made Chula, this really hip, cool kind of bartender. But what happened was that I was taking an improv class in Los Angeles, and I was thinking of writing something, just instead of just stand-up snippets, with this character, just actually going ahead and writing something. And I did the character for my improv class, and I had a huge crush on the teacher. And when I did the character, he was like, "You should write that. That character is awesome. Write something with that." And I was like, "You got it, Daddy." So I drove straight home after class, and I started writing Love Junkies. And that's how it just, wait, was that Love Junkies, or that might have been the first play, which also had Chula in it. So yeah.
So I'm curious, after you wrote and directed and watched your vision come to life on the stage, was that ever tempting for you to carry those skills over to film and try writing and directing a film?
I wrote a short film, but it was so upsetting that, like, the topic of the film was so upsetting that I was like, I don't know that I want to pursue this. But I guess at this point I would love to direct. But in terms of writing, gosh, I don't, writing is very lonely.
Yes. Writing, writing and post-production.
Oh, yeah. So I'm less inclined to put myself through the writing process. I don't feel as compelled anymore. I was compelled for a while, and so, I did write the 2 plays, but now I love, like, the whole concept of directing. So for sure, I'd love to direct a film. Yeah.
Amazing. That's amazing. Let me ask you something. You started out by talking about writing. So clearly people have, what I'm about to bring up, people have read it, they've watched it, and they've actually did plays on it. But this is going to be a unique take on it. Can you tell us about the recent audio theater production of Romeo and Juliet, and how something like this is accomplished? Because, of course, you're co-starring with Lupita Nyong'o, Wakanda Forever, Guillermo Diaz, Weeds, David Zayas, Dexter, and many others. So are you guys performing this together remotely? Just tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, we did it over Zoom. The public theater sent us a huge box of equipment. So we had professional mics and whatever else we needed to kind of attach to our computers to be able to record well. And then we would just get together and rehearse over Zoom. And then we rehearsed it first. And then it was like recording day, you know, and then that's when we would record our sections. Yeah.
It was really cool that was done bilingual too. Like it would just go jump back and forth between English and Spanish.
Yeah, it's so that's why I think they're calling it Romeo y Julieta. I think the name is like actually like Spanish.
I noticed a Y in between Romeo and Juliet in the title. I didn't know what to do with that.
That title is en fuego.
In 1993, you played Angie in Joel Schumacher's Rest in Peace. This is an underrated classic, one of my favorite films, Falling Down.
We just broke for lunch. Had a very good lunch. And so we're going back. We're almost done. Hee hee, having a ball.
And you worked with Schumacher again in 1999's Flawless with Robert De Niro and Philip Seymour Hoffman, also Rest in Peace. What was it like working with Joel Schumacher?
Heaven. We just, I don't know, like clicked, and he was just wonderful, just a wonderful man, just so understanding. And there was only one time where I guess he must have been tired. He was like in a little bit of a bad mood, but he wasn't mean to anyone. But I just remember noticing that, this is unusual for him. He's kind of like in this different space. But it was just this one time, and he just such again, an actor, director, you know, he knew how to talk to actors, and he loved actors, as did John. You know, I think you have to, if you love actors and you respect what they do, that makes you a much better director. Yeah, yes. He's wonderful.
I was going to ask you this.
I'm sorry. I'm just going to say you can tell when you watch interviews with Joel Schumacher that he really had a love for film. Whatever movie he was doing, it was very important to him. I mean, even Batman and Robin, which he took a whole bunch of slack for, when you watch interviews about him making that, he took that very seriously. Everything in that was done deliberately, as much slack as it gets. But it was exactly what the studio asked for, and yeah, I mean he was, you could tell he really has a respect for the craft.
I say the same thing. We've interviewed so many people, and generally when we interview people and we ask them about people they know, I try to look at people's eyes and their face to see what they really feel about a person. I could just see you were thinking about all the time that you spent with them. So let me ask you this. Are there any memories on set or off set of Joel that you'd like to share?
Well, I kind of want to tell about the audition. So I go in, I do the audition, and you know, he's there and stuff, and so I'm done, and then he just goes, I feel weird saying this because it's complimentary to I don't mean like I don't want to sound like I'm like whatever, but he goes, "What an actress." Like, that's what he said. He goes, "What an actress." And then he gave me a hug, which is very unusual in auditions. And I thought to myself, oh my God, he feels so bad for me that I'm trying to be an actress, that he felt that he had to comfort me some way, you know? That's really what I felt. And I was so like, oh gosh, I was so ashamed. Like, I really, you know. And then when I got it, I remember the phone call. I was doing Marisol. I think I was in Kentucky doing Marisol. And I got the phone call, and I was like, oh, I thought he felt sorry for me. And that's why he hugged me. Yeah.
That's amazing.
That is amazing. Awesome. Yeah. And what a great filmmaker. He will be missed.
Yes.
Yeah.
In 1995, you went back to school for Dangerous Minds with Michelle Pfeiffer. What was that experience like, and did you find yourself making comparisons between the two productions, both being kind of these biographical films about school employees that go above and beyond?
Well, I sort of made the connection on an intellectual level, but uh, in terms of the experience of making it, it was completely different. And that's for several reasons. One, I don't know if a lot of people know this, but that script was kind of written as we went along in rehearsals.
Wow.
That's crazy.
So, and I remember them talking to us and going, this was terrifying to me, what they said. They were like, if you want a big role in the film, then participate a lot in the rehearsals, in the improvs. And I was like, oh man, I'm going to end up with a tiny role. I know it, because I was just like, I need to, I wasn't at a point where it was that thing where it was like I was getting older and I was getting more self-conscious, and I was getting more intimidated by life in general. Yeah. So I no longer had that like carefree kind of, hey, go in and try whatever. I was more cautious. And, a lot of the people in that classroom had never acted. So it was like their lean on me. So they come in with this spirit of like, hey, I'm in a movie and I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. And I'm in the back going, where's the script? I want a script. I feel like, no, they had a script, but the stuff with the kids, it was like this. It was like, well, somebody would do something, some kind of improv, and then the next day it'd be in the pages. And then that's how, yeah. And so that's why my part is not big in that movie, because I felt very intimidated, because, that raw talent that was in that room, they would just do anything. And, in the rapping and the beatboxing and the karate and the whatever it is. And I'm just there in the back going, I really want a script. Like, that's all I could think of, if you tell me the lines, I can do it, but I can't come into this. I didn't feel confident enough, I guess. Yeah.
Isn't that crazy how as you gain more experience, you also collect more crippling hindsight to ponder on, or every time you're in a position to stand out, you have all of this history that is like creating
that is crazy.
Insecurities or whatever.
Well, 2 years later, they let you transfer schools because you weren't confident at this school. So they let you transfer schools 2 years later, and you still haven't escaped high school. You start as Rita in 187 alongside Samuel I Am the Man L. Jackson. What was it like working with an iconic actor such as him?
Well, he is the man, and he was the man. Such a professional. I guess the only regret I have, it was that, again, that I, because I was in a way the only girl, there was Kelly Rowland, who was the teachers, but she and I never really like had scenes together and stuff. So it was me and the guys, and, Sam, and I think because I was a girl, I was like, how do I get in here? I don't want, yeah. So I didn't quite, and that was again my own, I guess, shyness in a way, my own reserve, kind of quality. And I think that had I not had that, I would have been able to have just interacted with him more like the way the fellas were. It was like, hey, Sam, blah, 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 and I'm there like, hello, what I mean? It's like, yeah. So I do have regrets about how my limitations in approaching that. Yeah, but it was, it was great to work with him. He was, like I said, just very, very, just very professional. And he lived for that,
Yeah.
I'm always curious about this, because you of course, I don't know if you have a topless scene in the film, and
bottomless. I mean,
yes. She's on the sofa.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, she's on the sofa.
So I notice when it plays on television, it's almost like a completely different scene with different angles and everything. Like they don't just blur out the nudity. It's like they got separate shots to avoid it. And I was wondering if
I did not know that.
Okay, so
I don't think I've ever seen it on cable,
so that answers my question, because I was wondering if they did that proactively, like maybe going for a PG-13, or if they were just planning to have shots for television. But that answers that question. So if
yeah, I guess they must have done it. And gosh, I don't know. I have a lot of growing to do because I was watching something, and what was it? I think it was Helen Mirren. She did her master class on acting, and she was talking about how you should observe and watch what people are doing and all that. I don't. I'm in my own little. I'm like this. I'm in my own little bubble. So I would not have noticed what they were doing with all that stuff anyway. Yeah.
Let me ask you a question though. How do you mentally prepare for something like that? Because we heard you say how you were shy as when it came to improv, but if you have the script, you come prepared. So was this knowing ahead of time something like this was going to happen, and you were just mentally saying, "I'm psyched out. I'm going to do this." How do you mentally prepare for a scene like that?
You mean that specific scene?
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah. I wasn't concerned about the nudity. I was concerned about getting to the emotional place of the character. That was actually my bigger concern, which I was glad to have that to focus on, and not, because if it was maybe like a more frivolous kind of scene, I would have been like, all right, and now I'm naked, but because of what the character's going through. Yeah.
Right, because he literally tells her to get what? How?
He Black Snake moaned her.
You're right, like get dressed. And like, wait a minute, no, what? You don't. What?
You guys are saying such good stuff, and I'm missing it. Go ahead.
I said he Black Snake moaned you. Is the original?
Yes, like for him to tell, like I love what you're saying. You're saying, hey, listen, I wanted to be in that mental space as the character, because I think what people fail to realize is, as a woman, or the character you were playing at the time, she felt she had to give herself to him because that's what he wanted, but he didn't. And when he tells her to put on her clothes and get dressed, it's like, damn, you don't want this. What else do I have to offer? So for you to display that emotion, I think it came off great.
Oh, good. Thank you. That's really what I was concerned with. Can I tell you guys? Okay, so I tried to, so we shot that scene. It was like a closed set and everything, right? And again, and then part of me was like, is there something weird about me that I'm not, that it wasn't about the nudity for me? I was like, all right, whatever, you know what I mean? But so when we were watching dailies, so that was closed. They closed that as well to watch that, right? So I said to, I think the DP, I was like, I want to play a trick on Kevin. And so the director, and so I was like, can you, when they're panning to me, they're naked on the couch, can you cue up the music to The Crying Game?
Oh my God. That's awesome. Oh God. Yeah, no, that's awesome.
Yeah. And he did it. Yeah.
What was the response to that?
Nothing. So dissatisfying.
Oh my God.
Dissatisfying. Because Kevin's just there watching, and they really go, and I'm looking at him, and I'm like, and he's like just watching and stuff, and I'm like, Kevin, it's the man, never mind, forget it. Yeah, it didn't even register with him.
Oh my goodness. Now, let me ask you this. Now, as previously mentioned, you starred in Flawless in 1999, along, again, thank you, rest in peace, Philip Seymour Hoffman and Bobby De Niro. What was it like working with them? I mean, you worked with some Mount Rushmore of actors and actresses. So, I mean, what was this like?
I think a part of you just goes, should I be here? Like, it's very surreal. It's very surreal. Now with Philip Seymour Hoffman, I had known him sort of through Labyrinth Theater Company. I was kind of like a Labyrinth Theater Company groupie, and so I had already known him, so it wasn't like, oh, it was less, it was more familiar, but yeah, with De Niro, it was just like, oh, gosh, daunting. I just beyond my, I was thrilled and honored. Yeah.
Let me ask you this. You mentioned that you had known Philip from Labyrinth Theater. So let me ask you this. Either with this film or about their time in knowing him, were there any memory you want to share with us that you may have that you can remember?
Yeah, I do. And the other thing is that he Labyrinth produced a play that I did at the Public Theater called School of the Americas. It was about Che Guevara. And so that was actually the time that because I would see him every day, like he was there all the time, you know. But even before that, I had written my first play, and John Ortiz, who ran Labyrinth along with Phil, was just like, I told him about my script, and he was like, hey, why don't you bring it to our retreat? Because I was invited to their writing retreat, that, you know, where they do their new plays. And he's like, yeah, why don't you bring it, and we'll read it. And I was like, oh my God. So so Phil was there, and he was there in the front row, and I could hear him laughing. And then afterwards, yeah, he said to me, he came up to me, he's like, that was great. And he's like, was that based on personal experience? And we just talked about it, and that meant the world to me, that he would kind of take me aside and, you know, talk about it and stuff. And that's the kind of person that he was, you know. Yeah. And I had to audition just for him to get School of the Americas. It was like, we went in just, you know, for a group of people, and then it was like, oh yeah, I want to bring you back to audition for Phil. And I was like, okay, no pressure, right? So I kept having like these dreams where I would be doing my audition and he'd be asleep, or I'd be doing my audition and he'd be on the phone, and like I just like having like these dreams about, you know, just anxiety dreams, but yeah, just him talking about my play it meant a lot to me.
He's an amazing actor. I remember the first time I saw him was in the the first time I saw was Big Lebowski. Don't touch that. He was just, I knew the first time I saw him, like, this guy, if this guy doesn't end up being like an A-list actor that gets his dues, there's something wrong with casting agents, because he was just, I mean, he would take these small roles, like Along Came Polly.
Oh, when he played he played himself as G. Yes. Yes.
What's up?
I'm in a situation here. We have to leave now.
Well, no, can we stay a couple more minutes?
But dude, no. This is serious. I just sharded.
You know, I'd never seen it, and I just saw it, I think like 2 or 3 months ago. And I was like, how did I never see this? How did I miss this incredible performance from him?
Yeah. And Punch Drunk Love, I mean, he's I mean, he walks the line of being terrifying and hilarious at the very same time. Like, did you just
Shut up! Shut up!
But then he switches it up, because you didn't see this, because he doesn't like action movies like that. Mission Impossible, he killed it in Mission Impossible.
He kills it. He killed it in everything.
He's the man, man. He is the man.
The other thing I want to mention briefly, because I feel like I'm taking up so much time. I was doing Water by the Spoonful, you know, when he passed away, and oh God, it was so excruciating to do, because I found out, I think like 10 minutes before the show started. And it was like, all right, you got to go and do the show. And my first scene is a very upbeat one, whatever. But my character overdoses in the play.
Oh, wow.
So, but it was me, for me, it was my own, I paid tribute to him. I tried to, like, every night, and I would imagine him in the back row watching, and that got me through it, you know?
Yeah, that's beautiful.
That's really beautiful. All right, in 2001 and 2002, you played the role of CTU analyst Jamie Farrell in 24. Spoilers ahead for people who have been planning to watch 24 and haven't gotten around to it yet. It was revealed that you were an informant well into production already happening, with you finding out when you received the script for the 7th episode. How do you approach a character arc like that, where your character is the same person she's always been, but now the audience, as well as you, have found out something that essentially fundamentally changes her motives?
Yeah, I mean, it's the kind of thing where I'm playing it like, hey, I'm just the company hacker, like and then all of a sudden you're like, you have no choice but to only begin to incorporate it when
Yeah.
so that script, and I think it was revealed when Terry calls the CTU, and Jamie's like, "Oh, what's your location?" And then she scratches it out and just throws away the location. And I think that's how it was revealed. If my memory serves me correctly, we tried to shoot that on September 11th.
Wow.
Oh, wow. That's
Wow.
incredible.
Wow. Let me ask this. Oh, go ahead. No.
No, that's just, I'm just still processing that. What happened?
It was crazy because I looked like I'd been crying. I looked like it, and we're just trying to like shoot, and then it was just like, okay, we can't do this. And yeah.
Wow.
That was a terrifying time. I mean, in hindsight, we all look back at it now, like the Twin Towers got hit, something happened, the Pentagon. But I remember on September 11th, the whole country was in a state of fear. Like,
You didn't know what was going to happen.
Who's next?
Right.
Where's next? It was just.
Yeah,
It's
remember
terrifying.
Lisa talked about that in her interview. She was talking about seeing the smoke and everything on TV, and just that nauseating feeling of not knowing. So yeah, that's weird. Wow. Let me ask this now. Your character Jamie Farrell was written initially, from what we read, as a Caucasian, and the producers weren't looking for a stereotypical Latina portrayal. This resulted in you getting to play the character the way you wanted. What informs your decisions on how to bring Jamie Farrell to life?
Gosh, she was probably the closest to me that I had ever played. It was like my first time, and I'd been working several years by that point, and it was the first role that I did not have to have an accent. The first role. Yeah. So that was nice. And I think for a large part of it for me was her intellect, and I could just sort of, drop in with that, and so that was it felt great. I have to tell you.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's actually interesting. So with this character being like the closest to you as a person, you found out about the character's death a week before the final episode. What was that like for you?
Horrible.
Yeah.
I was devastated. Anyway, for those people who are fans of the show, what happened was, I think there was a scene where Jack Kiefer is talking to me on the phone, and I went over to where he was shooting to do the lines, my phone lines for him in person, right? And on the way, I think they had left the script in my trailer, whatever. So I'm reading, and I'm like, oh gosh, and I go over to Sarah Clark, and I go, I think I'm off the show. And I just whispered to her, I go, I think I'm off the show. And she's like, oh no. And then I'm like, look, and she's like, oh gosh. And then we have to go work, and it's like, oh, I can't talk about it whether you want. And then I have to go do my lines for Kiefer off camera and whatever. And anyway, and at some point, Stephen Hopkins, who directed most of the episodes, said to me, and I think he meant this. I think he really thought that this is what's going to happen. He's like, oh no, they just take you to hospital, and then they fix you up, and then you're back, and I'm like, well, okay, but I think he was hoping that that's what would happen. He thought, yeah, maybe that's, but I was truly devastated. Yeah.
Wow. That is crazy. Now, let's move forward a little bit here. In 2004, of course, you starred as Elizabeth in the highly critical Crash, alongside an ensemble of cast of so many great performers. Are there any stories from that production that you remember that you can tell us?
Gosh, that was a strange thing just because there's so many people in that movie and I
Mhm.
never got to meet any of them.
Wow. So it was the opposite of a crash. It was avoiding a crash. Gotcha. Oh my God. Not wow. Okay, then there you go. Well, let me ask you this. This may be more familiar to you then. In 2019, you starred in Orange is the New Black as Carla Cordova.
Your character's story was incredible. That I'm wondering, being native to another country yourself, what was that experience like portraying Carla? And I've seen things online with people talking about how your character specifically, that story has actually encouraged them to rethink their stance on like anti-immigration.
That was my biggest hope for this. I was like, if we could change just one person's mind, and just show the plight, because the comeback is always like, well, it's illegal, then don't do it. But it's not that easy.
Yeah, no, it's not.
Because people's lives and families are at stake, and they're just trying to do what is best for their families. And those same people that are criticizing and judging undocumented immigrants, they don't know what they would do in that position. You're saying that from the comfort of your own 2-bedroom home. So I was just like, if we could just change one person's mind.
I mean, you put it perfectly. I mean, that bringing that character, it really humanized that experience for people that really has no perspective as far as why somebody would come here, what trouble that brings. Like, it's no easy task. There's obviously something really bad there
to make them come here.
Yeah, but to put it in a story like that, where you can see the emotion, you can see that it affects a single person, and then if you have any kind of open mind or heart, you have to ask yourself, what would I do in that position? And most people should come up with the same exact thing, and then that's where the minds change and the empathy begins.
And Karina, I think you hit it right on the point earlier when you said, yeah, it's illegal, just don't do it. But no, follow-up question. Who made it illegal? What was their agenda? Why is it? See, we got to start learning these things. And I think, like I say, it's very courageous, the way you played your character, like you say, and also for this to be, ironically, for to be the first time she doesn't. I just put it this way. You did that role justice. I'm glad it went to you. I would definitely want to say that.
Oh, thank you. It was important. I felt a lot of pressure in a good way of like to do this story justice, because I knew that I was representing a lot of people, and people who unfortunately their voices are limited in terms of how they can make their voice heard.
100% correct. And that's why I said I love being an actor. We get to play make-believe all the time, but also change real people's lives. Let me ask you this now. This is according to IMDb, the Wikipedia of the movie world. Your most recent role is Valentina in First One In. It was released last year. Is there anything you can tell us about the project and any projects that you may have coming up, ma'am?
Yeah. Well, I got nothing. I'm going to be completely honest with you. I don't know when my next job is. I'm trying to get through this pandemic. I'm hoping that we go back in person soon. And, I've been putting myself on tape at home. And that's a learning experience, let me tell you. Just like watching yourself at 2 a.m. going, what did I do there? Yeah, that's it's a whole other thing in itself. But First One In was just so much fun. It was a comedy, and I was like, what? They put me in a comedy? Yeah, hell yeah. Because I never, they don't cast me for comedies,
Which is insane. Have they seen your Instagram?
Right.
I went down your Instagram. I told him, I was like, she keeps it real.
Right. And then that's why you're like, I'm a little animated. No, you're a lot animated, but in a good way.
Thank you. So that was a lot of fun, just doing that movie. It's kind of like it's a tennis story movie, and about friendship, and yeah, it's a good time. We had a great time making it.
Awesome.
So we have barely scratched the surface of your career, but before we move on, are there any other projects that we missed that you would like to talk about?
Gosh, I think your audience has been patient enough. I don't
Okay.
I
All right.
appreciate everyone listening. Thank
All
you.
right.
No problem. And let me just ask this, and we're going to let you go at this, but I just want to know, and I think you might have already spoken to it, but is there on stage or off or film, is there any particular role in your film career that you are most proud of? And if your project film reel only featured one scene only, what would it be?
Well, I think it would be a scene from Orange is the New Black. I would do this. Well, gosh, spoilers. Should I say it or?
Spoiler alert.
Alert,
Okay,
alert.
It's safe now.
Spoiler alert. I would do the scene where she's calling her children.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yes.
How do you get to they say action and then you have to bring this emotion to the table. Like, what do you do internally before a moment like that?
Well, I start at the beginning of the day or even the night before, and you've got to know, okay, this is what I'm going to bring. You can't just, for me, I've heard other actors talk about it, and I remember talking about it with this one actor, and he was saying, well, if it's there, it's there. If it's not, it's not. And I'm like, oh no, it's gonna be there. Okay. I don't care if I have to go into the restroom and stab myself. I'm gonna get there. Okay. But so I decide, what am I going to use? What from my life am I going to bring to this? And then I put together music or pictures or letters from people, and I bring all that stuff to work. And so when I'm waiting to go on, I'm reading stuff, I'm looking at pictures, I'm listening to music, and I'm already building that stuff up, because I don't, you got to be ready to go, and that was one of the last scenes that we shot. I think we shot it like at 8:30 at night, and we'd been shooting since the morning. And I was just trying to get through those other scenes. Okay, this one out of the way. I'm just worried about it. I was so, very overwhelmed just thinking about what's coming up later.
Yeah, that's got to be a turbulent experience emotionally. Like, you hear William Clark, we had on, the assistant director, worked with Samuel Jackson. He said, Samuel Jackson just turns it on and turns it off, action cut, and he's in and out. But it sounds like someone like you take yourself there emotionally and put yourself in that emotional place that the character is in.
Absolutely. I saw Samuel Jackson's masterclass as well, right? And he talked about how Julianne Moore can do it. He does it. Julianne Moore can be like, oh, did you see last night? And he actually used this example. Did you see it? Were you watching American Idol last night? And blah, 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 blah. And then she goes and I'm like, I don't know how people do that. I can't. I have to live it. I have to really, I'm there completely, that's
definitely an authenticity in your characters. And I think that's why is you're taking yourself there. You're essentially not acting. You're tricking your psyche into feeling these things.
That's it. Absolutely.
That's actually a perfect segue to the last question I have, is that as someone that you've worked on stage, film, television, you've written, you've directed, and you've been in both big budget productions down to independent projects. You've had firsthand experience on a spectrum of different sets with other fantastic actors. So what would you say is the best piece of advice that you would offer to aspiring actors?
It might not be what you think. So the mistake that I made for many years is that I tried to get my self-worth from acting. And it made me miserable. So if I had a good audition, I had a good life. If I had a bad audition, my life sucked. So my self-worth was completely based on how well my acting was going. And therefore, I was limited in what I could bring to certain roles because I was coming from a place of, love me, approve of me, So I guess I would say find your worth outside of acting and then bring that into the room, bring that into the audition room and bring that onto the set, because then you're not, they can sense it. They, the people hiring you can sense if you're standing tall in your own, on your own ground,
Yeah.
And the other thing is that if you do, which we all have, these voids within ourselves in terms of, just wanting love and affection and all this stuff, then put that into the character,
Hmm.
but don't put it into the audition, does that make sense?
Oh
It
yeah,
does. It
yeah.
definitely does.
Perfect
You know what I
sense.
mean?
Yes.
Because so that's another way of saying get to know yourself, get to know why you want to act. And if you want to act to fill a void, try to heal that. You can still go in and act and do your thing, but try to heal so that then you can still bring the void to certain characters, but then you can also bring the healing. Yeah, know yourself. You are your own best. A guitarist knows that guitar inside out. So know yourself. Know what has caused you pain. And then the more healing you do, then you. Okay, the last thing I'll say is the best auditions are the ones where you go in not caring if you get the job or not, because you're so focused on I need to express myself through this character, and this is what I have to say. You're so focused on that you surpass the audition. And when you go to that place, people are like, "Oh, okay." And then this is really the last thing I'll say. To remember that when you go into an audition, you are the bravest person in that room. So it does it at that moment. So it doesn't matter that you're auditioning for this director who did this and this casting director who cast that, whatever. At that moment, you are the only one being vulnerable, and that makes you brave. And hopefully that will give you, strength to embody what you need to embody.
Yeah, the bravest one in the room. That's perfect. And
Yes.
and being grounded in who you are as a person, I think is even. I mean that's definitely important, and you wear it when you go into an audition. But like someone like yourself, who you're subjecting yourself to the emotional journey of these different characters, and even at that point, it's important to be grounded in who you are as a person, to not completely lose yourself after a production is wrapped.
Yeah. I think that was great. I think you've given some of the most sound advice that we've heard a person give. So I want to thank you for that. So, ladies and gentlemen, the film is Lean on Me. Ladies and gentlemen, the character is Maria. But as she just stated, it's not about the character, it's about the person. Miss Karina Arroyave, we thank you so much for taking this pandemic time out for us and blessing us here on TTFT. May your career do nothing but skyrocket and stay high. And thank you so much, ma'am. Any parting words?
Just thank you so much. This has been so fun, and thank you for taking an interest in my career. And I guess my parting words would be to this is coming out soon, right? So we'll still be in pandemic mode.
Yes.
I mean, I think we're going to get through this, and I think we are going to go back to normal. And I want to, I really believe that, and I just want to offer some hope that we can see the finish line. And there's so many people want to say, no, it's going to change the world forever. It's not. We're going to be fine. That's what I think.
Awesome.
I think it has changed the world forever, but in a lot of positive ways. Like big companies now know that people don't have to waste their time coming into an establishment to get a job done.
I'm never going back.
I mean, we're talking right now. There's a lot of good things that have come out of this.
Yes.
That I think we can learn lessons from, which is
Yes.
Yeah, but
And
Perfect last words.
And you will be getting one more Instagram follower tonight, and that will be me. Because listen, I got to see all the quirkiness and everything. But again, thank you so much, ma'am. Please enjoy the rest of your evening, and we will be in contact soon.
Thank you guys so much. Have a great night.
Thank you. All the best.
Bye, you too.
Why don't you subscribe? It'll last longer.